I love John's Gospel. It is so intimate, so sacramental. It places us in the presence of Jesus through things like light and sight, through the smell and taste of bread and wine, through the cool water swirling over tired, dirty feet. John's Gospel uses the physical realities of human life to reach and heal our souls. That's why I love it. Take the problem of fear, for example. We don't know why the disciple Thomas had not been present with the other disciples as they hid fearful in a locked room on that first Sunday evening after the crucifixion. Jesus appeared there to the other male disciples and showed his wounds as proof that he was really their crucified master, alive again, risen. Maybe like me this weekend, Thomas was at home that first Easter Sunday, scrambling to find the paperwork he needed to file his taxes. Or maybe somebody in his family was sick. Maybe he just felt so defeated by Jesus' death that he wanted nothing but just to retreat into himself. During the intervening week, surely one of the other disciples must have told him that he missed his chance to be with Jesus, whose presence he was mourning so fiercely. He had missed his chance at replacing existential despair with confidence and joy. But thank goodness, on this, the 8th day of resurrection, Thomas has joined his fellows who are meeting a second time in that room, huddled and protected together again from the religious and political dangers that they have witnessed firsthand. You know, in the Genesis record of creation, the 8th day is when the creation work is done, and the first week of fully created existence begins, and it is blessed and pronounced very good by the Creator. This 8th day after Jesus' resurrection, too, signifies a completely reborn world, full of new life, transfigured in Jesus, a life where death no longer has the last word for him or for us, a life in which hate and violence has not won the final round against us. And in spite of the religious and political strife of every time, in this new existence there is at least the possibility of peace in the holy city, perhaps even in the whole world. There is at least the possibility that we sometimes fearful, sometimes faithless human beings can allow ourselves to see that we are empowered by the very Spirit of God, the very Spirit that brings new life into being. There at least is a possibility in this new resurrected creation that the Spirit will not just turn our clay to living flesh, as in that first day of creation, but this time will empower us to forgive each other, even in the midst of danger. It might empower us to forgive unequivocally, universally, as Jesus forgives. That itself would be a miracle. The first thing Jesus does as he appears again to those disciples is to offer his peace to everyone in the room. Everyone in the room. This is a kind of peace the world has not yet known. It's not circumstantial. It doesn't depend on the conditions in which we or those disciples find ourselves. This kind of God-graced peace was powerful enough and enduring enough to carry Jesus through his arrest and trial and crucifixion and burial. This is no movie set, flimsy, cardboard peace. The first thing Jesus offers doubtful Thomas is the very thing Thomas has insisted that he needs in order to be transformed into faithfulness, to believe. It's the opportunity to touch Jesus' wounds. Thomas thinks that before him there is unimpeachable evidence that this really is the Lord, truly risen, alive, physically present to each of them. That will be the thing that convinces him. And notice that Jesus does not argue with him. He doesn't question or challenge Thomas's need and say, oh, you don't really need that. And he certainly doesn't shame or blame him for having missed last week's gathering. Jesus simply gives Thomas what he has said he needs to unlock that self-protection he's built around him and release him into faith. After all, a week ago, Jesus had already called Mary Magdalene by name at the empty tomb, and he had revealed to the locked-away disciple those same wounds as the mark of his identity. He has helped other people understand what's going on. In other words, Mary's grief, Thomas's fear, and everybody's doubt, they're not failures. Our griefs, our fears, our doubt need not be failures either. They are the doorways to our faith. Doorways to our faith. Because Jesus recognizes our circumstances and our neediness, our frailty, and he accepts them and shows up for us. He offers us what we need. And then Jesus breathes on us. Again, using the flesh of human life to teach and heal our souls. He breathes his own life breath into us. He shares with us grieving, fearing, doubting disciples that same Holy Spirit that the Father shares with him. He shares that same Holy Spirit that the Father shares with him. He shares it with us. Once again, as at creation, God's breath, wind, spirit turns our dust into living flesh, something worth living out. Just imagine the intimacy of Jesus' breath filling the room, warm and moist, as near as a kiss. It filters into our lungs, it enlivens our very bloodstream, it dispels our grief, our fear, our doubt. Jesus shows up in our struggles, shows up and breathes. Like a midwife with a pregnant mother in labor, relieving our fear, our grief and doubt, and breathing new life into the world. And gradually we begin to sense, even at the cellular level, that we are loved in spite of everything. We are loved in spite of everything. Like Thomas, we have showed up late after that first Easter. After all, it's been 2,000 years or so since that first Easter, but that Spirit is still made available to us. Still made available. And not only does Jesus show up in our everyday lives to welcome our griefs and fears, he breathes into us that same life-giving Spirit that empowers the love between the Father and the Son. He breathes that love into us. After all this time, after all these years, Jesus still breathes with us, into us, onto us, and through us into the world. That love-driven power, that deep breath of the Spirit, I think we call it forgiveness. It's forgiveness, and it delivers peace. Like a damp, warm spring wind, it melts our griefs, it scatters our fear, and it carries new life into barren places. Forgiveness alone brings us that kind of peace that we and Mary Magdalene and Thomas and the whole world want. We who have breathed in that forgiveness must also breathe it out. We who have breathed in that forgiveness must also breathe it out. Peace Jesus says to all those who risk encountering him in the flesh, his flesh, our flesh, peace. As the Father has sent me, so send I you. As the Father has sent me, so send I you.